Okay. So welcome to the second Scary Sundays to Boundless Mondays call. I'm so happy that you're all here. What I'm going to do is answer any questions that anybody here on the call has. You can either put it in the chat or feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have. If you have your chart handy, that's really good, or you can send it to me and we can share it as well if you'd like to. And then I'll go through and answer the questions that have been submitted, because I've got 3 quite meaty questions as well. So the floor is yours, ladies. If there's anything that you want to ask or anything that you want to share or just want to say hi, then you're very welcome to.
I just wanted to say hi. I'm, here to learn more. Came through She-Evolve. I know we'll be seeing you soon. But since I'm not doing the human design with the rest of the girls, I figured I would come and, get services directly from you and get the full benefit. So I'm just here to learn more about human design and, and how it works, and, a lot specifically with my business, since trying to leave that 9 to 5 and go into having my own business. I did send you a bit of a lengthy message on Instagram, but basically when you brought up people feeling guilty about wanting to leave, I resonated with that, but in a different way. Okay. So I'm just curious to see what else was coming up for other people, because for me, I felt guilty because I know that during COVID, a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people were furloughed, and I worked from home and received my full pay the entire time, which is an absolute blessing. But that alone, had me feeling guilty, wow, this can change someone else's life. And here I am, I don't want this. So that's the part that felt, really guilty for me.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, and I can resonate with that, because I had a different reason for leaving my 9 to 5. It was the whole kind of sister wound and women in the office, and that was my main challenge. But also when I started thinking about leaving at the beginning of the pandemic, and that was one of the things I used to say to my coach: how can I be desiring these things when I'm not in a bad position? I'm not in a position where I have to leave, or I'm not in a position where I've lost a job or I can't work anymore. So that I went through exactly the same thing. And she said to me, look, if something's aligned for you, if you have a bigger purpose, then that's what you're here to help the collective with. If you kind of hide your light and don't shine and don't help people, then nothing changes. So the most important thing is, if you've got this understanding of, I need something else, I need to be doing something else, I can feel that I need to be doing something else, that's going to be in some sort of service to the collective. So she said to me, if something's good for you, it's good for everybody, because the universe won't have it where they create a good situation for you, but then it's not for someone else. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I think we do ourselves a disservice by carrying this guilt and questioning why we want to leave, because if it's already there for you, if you're feeling this pull to do something, whether it's to start your own business, learn more about your human design, whatever it is, then you're already kind of halfway there to helping people, because you're looking outside of your circumstances and saying, I have these desires, I have these desires for something bigger. And you following anytime anyone follows their desires and doesn't try and pull themselves back, it's a really beautiful example for everyone else as well, because you show us what that looks like. And by voicing your kind of inner conflict about, well, I'm okay now, I'm kind of okay where I am, but I want more. by voicing that, that opens up a whole new conversation for everyone else, because there are more people that feel the same way that you do. And I know because I've spoken to them in the last few days. So it's a really beautiful thing for you to open up and share that with us, for sure.
Thank you so much. And I love your message where you said, if you haven't picked a date, to just like randomly pick one and put it under your keyboard. That really resonated today. I just came from an astrology class that I'm doing. And in the class, it came up that next week we're going to be having some very heavy energies. Actually, starting tomorrow, we're going to have some heavy energies going in over to the weekend, and clashing with authority figures, and don't make any rash decisions. So I was like, oh, so that means okay, do not put in my 2 weeks. And then I mentioned to them about your post about picking a day, and they were like, no, take the advice of the post and pick your day and use that as your response and put it underneath your keyboard. So I absolutely love that, how it came full circle.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Yushi, because that was something that I did that worked so well for me. But when I was doing it, I had no one to follow. There was no one there to give me that advice. So I just did what I intuitively thought was a really powerful thing to do. And let me tell you, the day that I pulled that date, the day I left my job and I peeled that date off my keyboard, and it was 3 months earlier than the date that was on there, that was one of the pinnacles. I was so thrilled. And that's why I pass it on to other people. And even my husband, I told him I was doing it, and he was like, oh, cool, that's a really cool thing to do. And when it happened, it just blew his mind. He was like, but that's way earlier than the date that you were going to leave. I said, yeah, I know. Because every time I either had a difficult day or a difficult moment, or maybe for you, when you doubt that you should be leaving, like you have this guilt about why you should be leaving, I just used to put my hand over that date and send it some energy and just feel the warmth in my palm. And that takes the focus off this kind of inner turmoil and puts it somewhere positive. Because what we want to do is collapse the gap between where we are now and what we want. And that was another really, really powerful thing for me. So I used to say, I'm really excited that I'm leaving this job. I'm really excited that I'm going to be starting my own business. I'm so excited that this is a success. So it put me in that energy of, there's no gap, universe. There's no gap between where I am now and where I'm going. I'm not reaching for somewhere. I am somewhere. And this is how it feels. So that's another kind of, I use lots of kind of tips and tricks throughout the day to kind of help me through and to shift my energy. And the minute I started to shift my energy, that's when things started to change for me. So it's really powerful. Okay, so I just wanted to welcome everyone else. Hi, Kate. Hi, Anna. Welcome, welcome. I'm so thrilled to have you all here. Just reading Lilith's comments. It's interesting to see the other perspectives. I was on the other side, feeling guilty for not leaving sooner because I wasn't financially able to. I felt called to be an entrepreneur since I was young, but I wasn't in a position until COVID forced everyone to be at home. Thanks for sharing that, Lilith. It's so interesting to me. So let me take a step back a bit. My vocation, so my unconscious Mars in my chart, the gift level of that is intimacy, and the siddhi of that, so the highest expression of that energy is transparency. So my intention in this container is to be as transparent as possible. So when I started Boundless and when I started talking to women who were going through the same thing, I had this assumption that people were leaving for the same reasons, because they were struggling at work and they were maybe suffering with other women in the workplace. But literally the last few days, by you all sharing so beautifully and transparently, it's helped me understand that there are so many more reasons for wanting to make this transition. But every time I get a message, the word guilt comes up time and time again. And this is one of the things that I'd love us with our kind of group energy over the next few weeks to be able to shift together. Because that guilt, for me, that guilt comes from conditioning. You should be grateful for what you have. At least you have a job. Like, that's all that we hear, particularly during COVID. You're so lucky to have a job. You're so lucky to have an income. And it's twofold, because we can be grateful for that, but we can also want something more. We're here to create. And when I talk about manifesting, whether it's passive manifesting, active manifesting, however you're aligned to do it in your chart, we're all manifestors. We all create. We're creating our own reality. We're creating the world we see around us. And while we're stuck in situations that don't feel good, whether that's through societal conditioning or for financial reasons, we can't create. We can't get out there and create in the way that we want to. So I wanted to thank everyone for kind of introducing me to all these myriad of reasons why people are wanting to make this transition. So thank you so much. I was just saying, for Kate and for Anna and anyone that's joined us, I'm happy to answer you guys' questions. If you have anything at all you'd like to ask, feel free to unmute yourself, pop it in the chat. And I also have a few questions to go through from people that couldn't be here. So the floor is yours. If anyone has a question, you can just unmute yourself and just fire away. All right. So let us, if no one's got any questions at the moment, let's move on to these questions that I had submitted beforehand. So I think I've got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I've got 3. So let me just share my screen and I can show you what these questions are. And I always approach it from a human design perspective, obviously. So whenever you ask a question, you're very welcome to provide your birth details, and then we can go through your chart and have a look at it as we're talking. But very often what resonates for you may well resonate for someone else. So let us open this up. Okay, can everybody see my screen? Perfect, thank you. All right, so let us have a look at Ulrika's question first. Let me put my glasses on for this one. So Ulrika sent a question in. I need some advice to get my energy sustainable and flowing so I can focus on the things that are important to me. So she's still in her 9 to 5 and she's planning to take a sabbatical in about 14 months. And her question was very much around, how can I support my energy while I'm still in my 9 to 5? She has this very, very demanding job. She feels a lot of stress and a lot of pressure and is often too exhausted to work on her own business. So she's already got a good awareness about moving her body every day, having a good morning routine, following strategy and following authority. She knows that sleep and rest are her top priorities. But what she's wanting to look at is how to change the energetics while she's still in her job. And that's a really, really useful question, because like I said before, the first thing that I did was change my energetics, or learn about and understand my energetics and make small shifts. So anytime we talk about human design, it's designed to be an experiment. It's not designed to be a really heavy, onerous kind of 10-step process that you have to follow, you have to learn, you have to follow it. It's all about experimentation. And at the end of the day, we have our types, we have authorities, we have strategies, but this is a science of differentiation. So every single one of you beautiful souls on this call, every single person that I coach or teach is completely individual. So that's why these answers are quite broad, because it's not just one answer. It's let's have a look at this layer. Let's look at this layer. Let's look at this layer. And then it builds up a picture of how you can support your energy. So for Ulrika, the first thing that I looked at was her profile. So Ulrika, if you're watching the replay, so you are a 4-6. So the very first thing to note about a line 4 is having this need to build a firm foundation before you move on to something else. That's very aligned for a line 4. They always have to build first and then move. So line 4s in jobs will always have the next move planned as a stepping stone to move on to. They won't just step out into the unknown. And that's actually why it's really important whenever you see posts, or whenever I posted something in the group yesterday about jumping in and leaps of faith. That's a very kind of general motivation, because the more you get to know about your chart, for Ulrika, for example, a line 4 is not going to just jump in. A line 4, it's really aligned for her to understand that it's okay for her to want to build that firm foundation. And there's no shame around that. It's not her being overcautious or not having the courage to take this leap. It's okay. Now I get it. This is what my energy wants to do. It won't just make this leap of faith. So line 4s also in relationships, for example, they'll very often build that foundation before moving out of one relationship into another. That's very aligned for them. So Ulrika is also an emotional generator. So what's happening for her, if we just make this even bigger so you can see her chart. So as an emotional generator, she's got her sacral very defined. So the next thing that we're going to look at is, okay, she has this response strategy. We hear this about generators, but what is she actually responding to? Well, when we look at the bottom half of her chart, the most defined area for her is her emotional solar plexus. So she's going to respond first, usually, to those emotional things, those emotional triggers, because her sacral's connected directly to it. And this is very defined for her, this emotional center. Let me just make this smaller. So she's responding to this emotional center all the time. And although she's a generator, so we're always told that generators can work and work and work and work and work. So generators are the kind of workhorses of the collective. They're the type that built basically the society that we see around us. But the crux of the issue for Ulrika is if she's working at something that's draining her, if she's feeling exhausted, that's a huge red flag that she's not working at something that she loves to do. And she kind of already knows that, because she said, you know, this isn't where I want to be long term. But this is what's overriding almost everything else in her chart, because that's what's making her feel exhausted, because she's putting all of this beautiful sacral energy, I call it disco ball energy, she's putting it into something that just does not recharge her. And with generators, we can work and work. So I'm an emotional generator. We can work and work and work and work and work, because if it's something we love to do, like with human design, I can do it for hours because my sacral's just being recharged the whole time. So what I would say to Ulrika is, if she's not in a position right now where her job is lighting her up, focusing on something else that lights her up is a really beautiful thing to do. And if she doesn't have a lot of energy left for it at the end of the day, even a couple of kind of milestones throughout the day where she can immerse herself in what she loves to do will start to recharge that battery. Because we need to, I was in this position as well, and it's almost like disconnecting yourself from your job and connecting yourself, like plugging yourself into what really lights you up and what really excites you. The other thing that I've looked at in her chart is her motivation. Now, her motivation is, let me make this a bit bigger, down here. Okay, so if her motivation is, for instance, if her motivation was need, I would say to her, okay, what's motivating you? What do you feel that you need to work on in your business? What do you need in order to have something that lights you up right now? What do you need in order to get quiet enough to hear what lights you up? She also has gate 43 in her ajna, and gate 43 is this, somebody described it to me yesterday, one of the coaches I work with, as this noisy gate that may not give her the space to hear what she needs. So need is a very big thing for her. What is it that you need in order to move ahead? What do you need in order to light up your sacral so that you can work on your business outside of your 9 to 5? And then her gate 43 is directly connected to the gate of simplicity in her throat center. And this gate of simplicity, although it's unconscious for her, so she may not really know that she's doing it, she may not know that she does this unconsciously, she can communicate her ideas and her perspectives in a very simple way that's very aligned for her. So again, this is us understanding that we're all so different, particularly on socials. I think we feel this pull to explain everything, like give everyone all the information, particularly with human design, or when we're starting a new business, give everyone everything. But this gate 23 is saying to her, be easy about it, be simple about it. What is it you need? What does your audience need? And communicate that to them in a simple way. So what does she need right now in this moment? Let me just check the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, Kate, no problem. Yep, let me finish with Ulrika and I will come back to that incarnation cross question. Really, really great question. Okay, let's pop you down here. The other thing that Ulrika has is an open head center, and that was one of the things that she asked me about. And what she might find with that open head center is, particularly when she's in an office environment, she might have a tendency to want to do the mental labor for everyone else. This open head center sees all the ideas. It sees everything that's swirling around, and that can be really exhausting for her. So that may be contributing to that exhaustion. So it's really beautiful for her to say, okay, what I'm thinking about and these questions that I'm trying to answer, do they really matter? Is it something I need to answer? So for instance, as an example, I have an open head center. I can go to the gym and within 5 minutes, I'm thinking, oh, why did they put that piece of equipment in it there? I wonder how they got that there. I wonder how they got all this equipment in here. How did they choose the color of this equipment? And on and on and on and on. So that open head center, the next time, Ulrika, you find yourself pulled into that, which is exhausting, is to say, okay, is this really important to me? This question that I'm trying to deal with, is this going to get me what I need? Do I need, so it comes back to motivation, do I need to be answering this question? Another important area for Ulrika to look at is that open root center. So she has a completely open root center. So what this center does when it's open, bye Shane, see you soon. Lovely to have you, see you soon. This open root center takes in external pressure. So the pressure doesn't come from internally, it comes externally. So she may be in this office environment feeling all this external pressure. So these deadlines from outside, this stress from other people. She'll pick up on other people's stress really easily. And also the open root center can have this guilt for not being productive, for just taking the time they need to rest, even though she's a generator and this generator conditioning is work, work, work. For Ulrika, this open root center, it's really aligned for her to rest and say, you know what, I need this rest. I need to take this time because the pressure is external. So for her in the office environment is recognizing what's her pressure and what's coming externally. But she can also leverage that. So open centers aren't where we lack. They're not limiting us. They're areas where we can receive. They're really beautiful. So what she can do is say, okay, I need to meet this deadline at work. I'm going to borrow the energetic codes. I'm going to utilize somebody else's defined root center to pick up on that adrenaline and that stress to meet a deadline. But when that deadline is over, then it's beautiful for her to let those energetic codes go because she doesn't have the consistent access to that. It's not aligned for her to keep all that pressure in that open root center. So where she's saying that she exercises regularly, that's a really good way to get rid of that pressure that you might have picked up from someone else. So I would say, Ulrika, really have a look at that open head center and that open root center, and see how you can best leverage them and look after them, look after that energy that you might hold there. Another thing that she can do, which I talk a lot about, which we were talking about earlier, that really helped me, is for her to bring her energy into the office. This was a really, really good piece of advice I received, because whenever I went into the office, I would intentionally say, I'm not bringing any of myself into here. I'm not letting anyone see who I really am. But once I started to do that, once I started to bring plants into the office and crystals and oils and all the things that made me happy, it really lifted the energy in the office. And so many people would kind of line up for their dose of essential oil in the morning because it made them feel so good. They'd walk into the office and they'd say, wow, it smells so good in here. It smells like a spa. That really, really helped me. Getting outside during the day as much as possible, putting my feet on the earth, grounding myself, using crystals. I had a piece of black tourmaline on my desk, which really helped kind of soak up all the negative energy that was around me and protect me from that. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I connected myself from being so invested in the job. And then I still did enough, I'll be honest, I did enough to get by. But then I brought my own energy in, which kind of filled the room and filled the space. And to be honest, it was a few months after that I left. And it was almost like my energy had just got so big that my job just eventually fell away. And I've had a few clients kind of reflect that back to me as well, that that's been their experience, that their jobs eventually just kind of fell away. So let me move on so I make sure I get through everything. So split definition. Ulrika has this split definition. So this means that there's two parts of her energy that are talking to each other. So there's a part up here that's talking to each other and a part down here. So I'll show you. So she's got her ajna and her throat are talking to each other, and then these areas are talking to each other. So she said she at the moment feels like she's in this kind of in-between state, that she hasn't quite been able to bring all the parts of her energy together and kind of integrate everything. So Ulrika, for you, it's really beautiful for you to talk to someone or be in an environment that can complete this circuitry for you, because then you can hear yourself as one cohesive voice. Again, a split definition isn't good, it isn't bad, it just is. It's everything in the chart is perfectly designed exactly as it's supposed to be. But play with that, Ulrika. Either find somebody that can complete those circuits for you, or have a look at the daily transits. So each moment in time has its human design. And it may be that today's chart connects some parts of your energy. For instance, the 3536 has been defined in the transits for quite some time. And that would be connecting your throat to your emotional center. So you might be finding it a little bit smoother, a little bit easier to be able to voice your emotions around this. Maybe that's why you found us in this group. So anything that completes those circuits is a really good thing. Also, manifestation style. So Ulrika's a passive manifester and she's non-specific. So if she's thinking about what she wants and what she wants her business to look like, for her manifesting style, now you can manifest either way. She can be an active manifester, a specific, a non-specific, a passive, but passive and non-specific in her chart is really aligned for her. So what I would encourage you to focus on, Ulrika, is the feeling. What feeling do you want? What feeling do you want your business to give you, rather than the detail of it? If you signal to the universe how you want to feel, whether that's free, excited, abundant, whatever that is, that's the feeling to focus on rather than the detail. So I'm going a bit quicker here because I want to make sure that I get everyone's answered. Also, your cognition is smell. So our cognition is how we connect with our desires, how we connect with them in the external world. So anything that you can bring into your office or your home or your workspace, anything that smells good to you, so candles, perfume, literally the smell of what you desire will connect you to your manifestations. And finally, there's a lot of 3 and 6 line energy in Ulrika's chart. So this vision is very aligned for her. Line 6s are all about the big vision. Like, okay, I've got this, I've mastered this, I've mastered my job. So what's next? They're the top line of the trigram. So they're always looking to what's next. And the 3 energy is this trial and error energy. So Ulrika may go through a lot of different kind of iterations of a business. She may have gone through a lot of big life experiences. This trial and error is always present for this 3-line energy. And it's important to recognize that none of the things that happen are mistakes. They're all vital in Ulrika's process to kind of understanding what that bigger vision is. So that's Ulrika's chart. Let me just check the chat to see what's going on in here. Awesome. Yep, no problem. Let me get through these 2 and then I'll come to these questions. You're all asking some amazing questions. So the next chart is Annika. And Annika asked a question that we get all the time. Of course, you know, we all want to know that. How do I attract money? So there are several parts of your chart that you can start to look at for how do I attract money. Annika is a splenic projector and she is a 2-4, just to give you that background. So if we look at her manifestation style, she's a passive, but she's also a specific manifester. So what I would encourage you to do, Annika, is to focus on, like we said for Ulrika, the feeling of what you want. How do you want money to make you feel? What are you going to feel? Because we all desire it for different things. How do you want to feel? Is it going to give you security? Is it going to give you this feeling of freedom, this feeling of abundance, this feeling of luxury? What's it going to give you? But she's also a specific manifester. So she is able to get detailed about, okay, so I desire money for freedom. What does that freedom look like for you, Annika? You can get detailed about that view of the world. When it comes into the world for me, what is it going to look like? So you can be passive about the feeling, or passive manifestation. Let the universe know what you want to feel. And then that specific kind of grounds it and says, okay, what is that freedom actually going to look like for me? The other thing that I would get Annika to focus on is this defined ego center here. Whenever you have a defined ego center, you are designed to receive your desires. So you don't have to agonize over it. You are designed for your desires to flow to you. Once your desires flow to you, then you can model to the rest of us what it looks like to have desires and to receive them. There can be some shame around desire, even the word desire, because, or especially at the moment, the world's in flux. Why should I get what I desire? That seems quite a small thing to want. So surely I should be wanting something bigger. But this life is about joy. It's about pleasure. And the more Annika with her defined ego centers can show us, it's safe. It's safe to desire things. It's safe to desire something bigger, even though I'm not suffering in my job, for instance. It's safe to do that. The other thing that we can look at is her Pearl Gate. So in Gene Keys, there's a sequence called the Pearl sequence, the prosperity sequence. And it's too big to go into on this call, but one of the things we can look at is the pearl is the line of the pearl. So the line, which is after the decimal point, shows us what Annika desires money for. And we all desire money for different things. So what is it for Annika? So Annika is 16.1. That's her Pearl Gate. So a relationship to money for a line 1 is designed to be really simple. It's about freedom. And that's what we've been talking about. So for Annika, most likely her desire for money is about freedom, the freedom to create, the freedom to have location, time, creative freedom. And it's about simplicity. It's about getting rid of clutter, energetic clutter, material clutter. And again, if she's living this simple life of abundance, then she's a really good example to the rest of us. That's how you can do it. If you desire money for freedom and for no other reason, that's fine. That's safe. You can do that. So that's one thing that I would look at and play with. And the other thing that I would look at is what we call abundance keys. So your abundance keys are your, let's talk about the defined gates in the G center. So these red gates, they give us a really good clue as to how we can become magnetic to money or magnetic to our desires. So let's just go over them briefly here. So Annika has gate 10 defined. This is about love of self. So it's beautiful for Annika to be able to show us what self-love looks like. And that's not self-love in spite of any perceived flaws that you might think you have. It's loving the whole of the self, loving all parts of ourself, not despite of these things, but almost because of these things. One of her other abundance keys is gate 46. Gate 46 is about the love of body. I have gate 46 defined as an abundance key. So being strong in my physical body, working out, making sure that my physical body is strong enough to hold the up levels in energy that come with a greater abundance and that come with receiving those desires. And gate 25 here. So 25 is about spirit, love of spirit. So Annika, I would encourage you to create practices that support your spiritual growth, because spiritual growth and financial growth are really closely aligned for you. Again, we're kind of taught that, well, that, you know, those two things don't sit well together. They do. Just because we're on this spiritual journey doesn't mean we can't be abundant. The two aren't mutually exclusive. In fact, the more we immerse ourselves in our purpose, the more the abundance comes to support us. So the two things do work together. Let me just check the messages. Okay, you're so welcome. I'm glad this is helpful. It's a lot of information to throw at you, but I'm here to give you guys what you need today. So that's why I'm kind of getting through these questions, and I'll get to your great questions too. So the other thing that Annika asks is there a hint in my chart about how to spend the money and what to spend it on? Very often when you ask a question about your chart, the first thing that I would say is, have a look inside and ask yourself, why am I asking this question? What's prompting it? Is it something that I can uncover? Because whenever we're asking questions and then we say, well, why am I asking that question? It's almost a thread that we can pull and say, okay, maybe I can unpack this. This doesn't mean that there's something wrong with my thinking or wrong with my mindset. It's just, okay, let's pull this thread and get curious. Why am I asking a question about how to spend this money? Why am I asking a question about what to spend it on? Is it an issue of self-trust? Have I been told in the past that I'm very frivolous with money? Have I been told that even when you're much younger, that you can't be trusted with money, or you make poor investment decisions? So that's the first thing that I would look at. Is it a self-trust issue? Is it a scarcity issue? Do I feel that I need to hold on to this money rather than spend it? So that's what the first thing that I would encourage you to do, Annika, is just kind of tug at that thread and see what gets unraveled. And the second thing is always come back to your strategy and authority. So you're a splenic projector. So your strategy, that waiting for the invitation, is something going to invite you to invest in? Or is somebody going to appear in your reality for you to invest in? Your authority, your splenic authority. So the spleen, when the spleen's the authority, it just knows. It's a very quick, sometimes very quiet inner knowing. So sometimes it's difficult to hear. So if you can't hear it sometimes, I would encourage you to get somewhere quiet where you can really hear that splenic authority. Okay, and Alina, let's have a look. This is the final question that we had submitted. So in the free resource library, if some of you haven't heard of the resource library, it's a free library full of human design resources, and I can drop the link here at the end of the call. So Alina's been a member of that library for a while, and she's been looking at the information that's in there about creating offers around defined centers. So she's saying, I was wondering what your advice would be for someone like me who has 7 out of 9 centers defined, because I struggle with this and finding out what would suit my energy best. So again, I would come back to your strategy and authority. What do you want to do? Where do you feel you have wisdom to offer people? What's exciting to you? That's the first thing to look at. What's my intuition telling me? And the next thing I would look at is her sacral responding to her root here. So she's an emotional manifesting generator. So whereas earlier Ulrika's sacral was directly responding to her emotions, for Alina, her sacral is responding to her root center. So she's going to be continuously responding to that pressure to grow and evolve and ascend. That's going to kind of be the overriding energy for her. But it's not limited. Just because we're looking at your defined root center, because it's the most defined center and it's aligned for you to build an offer around, doesn't mean that you have to do that. It's just, that's going to be one of the easier areas for you to start with, because you have that innate energy and that innate magic there. So get curious about this defined center. Your most defined center is your root center. Do you have wisdom to offer around it? Maybe yes, maybe no. If no, move on and have a look at the next most defined center, which is, we've got your throat center, your G center. So that center of self. Is that do I have wisdom around self-love? Is that something I want to offer, and self-identity? So get curious about it. So if you find that root center, if it's really aligned for you to offer your magic around that, that's about improving, growing, evolving, managing stress, managing deadlines. So you can help other people do that. You can create courses around stress management techniques, self-care, how to create urgency in your audience in an aligned way, how to, challenges are really good. So how to manifest 10,000 in a week, how to create 300 pieces of content, that kind of thing. Anything that challenges in that way, that challenges that pressure to grow and evolve, is really good for you to offer, because you should have a lot of wisdom about that. Excuse Oscar barking. He's 14 and a half and he has a little bit of dementia. So every so often he kind of gets a bit confused. So I might have to go and grab him in a minute and just bring him in here. So Oscar kind of comes with the package, because that's part of the reason I wanted to work from home, was to look after him. And he's getting a little bit poorly in his old age. So, oh, I love Oscar. Thanks, Brittany. He's, like I said, he's a package deal. He comes with me. So we have to kind of work with him in his old age, bless him. I'll see how he goes. If he keeps barking, I'll go get him and give him a snack, bring him in. Okay, so Alina, the last thing that I would encourage you to look at is your format channel here, this 4255, the channel of maturation. The format channels here, which are the 3 channels that run from the root to the sacral, override everything else in our chart. They're the start of the circuitry, they're different circuitry. And regardless of what else is going on, these format channels override everything. So if you have one in your chart, that's a really, really useful place to start. So like I said, they're connected to the foundational energy within the collective, these format channels, individual, logical, abstract life force. So it will heavily influence how you live out your life, like I said, regardless of what else is going on. So for you, Alina, you have this 4255, this channel of maturation. This is about cycles, beginnings and endings. So when you're thinking about offers, it's good to take this into account as well, because this channel will have you feeling that you need to get involved in a lot of things. And when you get involved in a lot of things without using your strategy and authority, you can end up in these endless situations where you start things, but it's hard for you to finish them. Your Sacral response and your splenic authority will always guide you to the right places and the right offers. And then you'll be able to complete that cycle. But you may find yourself a few times stuck in that kind of, I've started it, but I don't want to finish it. And the not self is evident. So that anger and that frustration when you're not following your strategy by not finishing things, by starting things and not finishing them correctly. So those are all the questions that I had for today. If you will forgive me for one moment, I'm going to go and grab Oscar, bring him in with us, and then I will look at your questions. Just one moment. Okay, thank you everyone for that grace. Let's come back. I'll stop sharing this and I will have a look at the questions that you have for me. Let's have a look. Beautiful way to shift and remind yourself. Yeah, I love that, Lilith. Oh, so Kate, you're also a 4/6. That's exciting. I love that. So you've got that networking energy consciously and that role model energy unconsciously, that big vision. Lilith's a 4/6. Got lots of 4/6s on here. That released some of the guilt. I'm so glad. I'm so glad. One of my intentions with this container is transparency, but it's also lifting this guilt off our shoulders for so many different things. There's so much conditioning that we're subjected to. We kind of feel guilty for doing things, guilty for not doing things. So it's one of my intentions is to shift that for us. Brittany, this resonates so much. I'm so glad. Okay, Kate. I have a question. I don't understand what incarnation crosses are. Mine is right angle cross of contagion. I have no idea what that means. Would love any insight. I'm a sacral generator 4/6. Okay, great question, Kate. I'm really glad you asked this. So your incarnation cross is, let me share my screen again and I'll show you my chart and I can explain it clearly. Let's have a look. So your incarnation cross energies are the 4 most powerful energies in your chart. And they're made up of the top 4 gates. So let's have a look. Let's just do this. Okay, so this is my chart here. So this is your incarnation cross. So your conscious sun. Your conscious sun is the most powerful energy in your chart. It makes up about 70% of the energy. So this is a really good place to look at when you're thinking about leaving one situation for another, when you're thinking about starting a business. What can I offer? How can I help people? Because the shadow of this gate here is the very thing that you can help people transform. So for example, the shadow of gate 5 is impatience. And I was stuck in that place for 10, 12 years while I was trying to start a business, any business. So that's something I'm very familiar with, and that's something that I can help other people with. So that's your conscious sun, and we can talk more about that on another call or in the group, because there's so much information that we can learn about ourselves there. And then we've got your conscious earth. So the conscious sun and the conscious earth create this kind of beautiful tension. The conscious sun is your energy, like your spirit. I think about like your spiritual home, your spiritual purpose, kind of what you're here to do. It's quite ethereal and can be quite challenging to get a hold of sometimes. Your conscious earth creates this beautiful tension. So what it does is it shows you how you express that energy on the material plane. So for instance, the gift level of my gate 5 is patience, and the gift level of my conscious earth is adventure. So I have these 2 seemingly opposing energies, this patience and this adventure, kind of pushing me and helping me to evolve. And the other two parts of your incarnation cross are your unconscious sun and your unconscious earth. So what you can do is, once you understand, or once you run your chart and you can see what the description of your incarnation cross, you can go to a website called Love Your Human Design, and it's got all the incarnation crosses on here. And rather than searching up here, just a little tip, if you do a Command F or a Control F and search here, then that's a much easier search. So for instance, I can go, okay, LAX or left angle cross separation 2. So I can put separation 2, here it is. So this is a good starting point for understanding what your purpose is, what you're here to do. So to answer your question, Kate, start here, because this will give you a really good idea of where you're going, like what you're here to do, what the core energies in your chart are. I will say that when I first found human design, well, for months and months and months, I used to read my incarnation cross and it made no sense to me at all. So sometimes you look at it and go, well, that's not me. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. And it wasn't till probably about 3 weeks or so, I was doing someone else's chart who had the same cross. I went back to have a look at it and it stopped me in my tracks, because it's exactly what I'm doing. So my cross, just to relate it to my chart, because that's what we have up, is about rhythm, finding your own rhythm, because the mainstream doesn't work for you. The mainstream workforce, and then there is the need for others to fill in the void around it, doing your own thing. So the mainstream workforce isn't for me, and it's not. It's about, my energy is about doing my own thing. It wants to march to its own beat. It's looking for patterns and rhythms that work for me and not necessarily everyone else, because other people's patterns don't work for me. My pattern's important, and that's what I offer the world. So I encourage you to have a look at this website first, and it will give you the gates along here. So your conscious sun, your conscious earth, unconscious sun, unconscious earth, and just play with it. And you may find that that makes no sense to me, but it doesn't have to make sense right now. It may make sense down the track, which is exactly my experience. So I hope that helps. Let's have a look at chat. Yes, looking at it now. Oh, I love that. I love that. I love when people start digging into incarnation crosses. It's so exciting. I love that. Let's have a look at Lilith's question. I haven't really understood motivations yet. So this brings up a question for me. If you had time, I'd love some insight. My motivation is guilt. Okay, I will be completely honest with you. The motivations and the transferred motivations in the human design chart are tricky. I am one of the support coaches for Eden Carpenter's human design coaching certification, along with Brittany, who's on the call here as well, which is lovely. And we are literally just trying to translate them ourselves with Eden and to understand what they really mean. So I will do my best, but it's not something that I'm super familiar with yet, but I'm really, really curious about it. So your motivation is guilt. So let me talk about my chart first, only because it's easier to understand it for me, and then this might make sense for you, and we can kind of go backwards and forwards. So my motivation is fear. Seemingly not the greatest motivation. Like, why would you want to be motivated by fear? But what it's important for me to look at is, what am I most afraid of never doing? Like, what's the biggest gamble for not taking action for me? What would be the thing that I fear the most about leaving this world and not having done? For me, it would be having people who are in the same difficult situation as me at work, wanting a different life, and me not being able to help them or reach them. That's my motivation. So it's not that my fear is my motivation in a negative way. It's, what would I most be afraid of not achieving and helping people with? So for you, Yeah. That's what you would ask yourself. What would I regret not leaving in the world after I'm gone? I think that's a really good place to start with motivation. So if your motivation was desire, for example, what do I most desire? If once I leave this material plane, what would I regret? What desire would I regret not having followed through or not having fulfilled? So for you, Liliana, for you, I'm looking at your second name, Elena, as well. Lilith, for you, if your motivation is guilt, maybe approach it from, just play with it and approach it from, what do I have that I can give people that is really easy for me to give them, to the point where I might feel some guilt if I didn't communicate that. Maybe there's something that's really comes really easily to you and is really obvious to you, but not to everyone. So I would play with that, and I'll look into that. Let me make a note to look into that guilt motivation more, and see if I can shed any more light on it. But that's what I would do first, is play with it and go, okay, if I left the material plane tomorrow, what would I have regret about? Yeah, exactly what you said. What would I regret not passing on that might come so easily to me I might not even kind of register it? Yeah, that's what I would do. And I'd be interested to see what happens. So this is all, we're kind of exploring this together as well, because every question that I get kind of opens up the floor to everyone else to kind of experiment. There's no right or wrong. And the other thing that I would say is, hats off to you guys for being here and wanting to dive into this really complex subject. There are so few people that approach the world and business in this way that it's thrilling for you guys to be here and to be so curious and to ask questions about it. So good on you. Okay. Will do. Appreciate the insight. Awesome. Okay. How are we doing for time? If any of you have got any more questions, feel very free to put them in the chat. I'm happy to answer anything else that you have. And while we're waiting for that, if anyone's got any questions they want to ask in the chat, hopefully I should think you're all in the Boundless pop-up group. If you're not and you'd like to be, just let me know. You can pop me a DM and I will send you an invite. Maybe some of the invites may have gone into junk and you may not have seen them, but there's lots of awesome stuff going on in there. There's lots of questions being asked and lots of stories being shared. So hopefully you're all situated in there. And you're all getting the text that you need. So if you're on the Boundless wait list, you'll be getting those Boundless boosts as well. So yeah, go for it, Liliana. Never a weird question. Never. Go for it. You're very welcome to ask.
Okay, I'm going to come off of mute because it's just going to be so much easier. Hi.
Hi, Lilith.
I'm in self-care in the bathtub, so I'm trying not to.
I love that. Good for you.
But I'm a 4/6 self-projected projector, and I have like this great desire to impact a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's energetically correct for me because of some of the other things going on in my chart, but I also don't know if it's not energetically correct for me, if that makes sense.
Great question. That's not weird at all. And I bet so many people have the same question as you. So good on you for asking that. So the first thing I would say is, if you have a desire, regardless of your type, your strategy, or authority, if you have a really strong desire, you can, it's fine, it's good to have that. And there's nothing in your chart that will stop you. Nothing. So there may be parts of your chart that we look at and go, okay, well, this is why. Maybe you have a lot of line 6 energy because are you a 4/6?
Yeah, I'm a 4/6 and I have a ton of 6 energy.
Okay, there, bingo. All right. So the 4 energy is wanting to connect your close circle and network with a close circle. And that 6 lines going, hey, Lilith, we've got a bigger vision. Subconsciously, there is that bigger vision there. And it's like when you're a 4-6, or when you have the lower number first, during your lifetime, it's like the 6, that unconscious energy will try and draw the 4 towards it. So it's saying the view's really good from here. You know, this big vision is really good. This is really going to help people. So you may find that during your life, this has kept coming back to you over and over again. Like this big vision is looking at kind of what's next. Okay, I've mastered this. What's next? So anytime you have that desire, you absolutely permission to do it, permission to help, because it means that you're going to be able to help people. So what I would look at is, okay, while you have this big vision, which is beautiful, how can we look after you? How can we look after your energy so that you can deliver this vision to people? So for self-projected projector, so for projectors, it's about finding your people, because you see people really deeply. You see what they need. You have this focused, penetrating aura. And when you try and tell everybody what your big vision is or help everybody, it's not meant for everyone. And some people can turn around and say, no, I don't need that advice. Thank you. I don't need to hear about that big vision, because they're not your people. And just because you need to find your people doesn't mean it can't be thousands. You know, you can easily talk to one people or talk to thousands, but it's finding the right person or the right people to hear your message. And structuring your workday and structuring your business so that your energy can be supported is really important. So if you have your own business, that looks like hiring at least one person or several people to hand things off to kind of hand the admin or the kind of quote unquote grunt work off to, so you can stay at this level. Projector energy is bird's eye. It's a very bird's eye view. And you can look at the collective and you can understand what we need. You can, I liken it to, if you're building a house, the projector is the architect, the one with the plan, the one that can see the big vision. They're not doing it. They're not building the house. That's us generators, but they have this bird's eye view. So keeping your energy supported and high, nutrition, small light meals, very aligned for projectors rather than big heavy meals to keep your energy up here. So yeah, it's twofold. Absolutely, that big vision is very aligned for you. And then we also need to look after your energy so you can deliver that vision as well.
That's so helpful. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? Anna, you've got to go now. Oh, goodness me, midnight. I know what those time differences are like. Thank you so much, Anna. If no one else has any questions, I'm going to go ahead and finish up. Thank you all so much for coming. I was thrilled to see you all here. I'm going to put the replay up in the group. You're welcome, Lilith. And I'm so sorry if I kept calling you Liliana. I keep looking at your second name. I hate getting people's names wrong, Lilith. And we'll have another call, same time next week. We've got another 3 calls after this as well. So any questions, pop them in the group. Any questions that you want answered on the calls, then there's a form that you can fill out in the group. So thank you for your patience with Oscar. He's actually fast asleep now, so I think he just wanted to come in here with us all. So I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, and hopefully I will speak to you soon. Bye, everyone.